Work and its Secret by Swami Vivekananda, published by Advaita Ashrama, Publication House of Ramakrishna Mutt, Belur Mutt. Chapter 1. Work and its Secret. One of the greatest lessons I have learnt in my life is to pay as much attention to the means of work as to its end. He was a great man from whom I learnt it, and his own life was a practical demonstration of this great principle. I have been always learning great lessons from that one principle, and it appears to me that all the secret of success is there, to pay as much attention to the means as to the end. Our great defect in life is that we are so much drawn to the ideal. The goal is so much more enchanting, so much more alluring, so much bigger in our mental horizon, that we lose sight of the details altogether. But whenever failure comes, if we analyze it critically, in 99% of cases, we shall find that it was because we did not pay attention to the means. Proper attention to the finishing, strengthening of the means is what we need. With the means all right, the end must come. We forget that it is the cause that produces the effect. The effect cannot come by itself, and unless the causes are exact, proper, and powerful, the effect will not be produced. Once the ideal is chosen and the means determined, we may almost let go the ideal, because we are sure it will be there when the means are perfected. When the cause is there, there is no more difficulty about the effect. The effect is bound to come. If we take care of the cause, the effect will take care of itself. The realization of the ideal is the effect. The means are the cause. Attention to the means, therefore, is the great secret of life. We also read this in the Gita and learn that we have to work, constantly work with all our power to put our whole mind in the work, whatever it be that we are doing. At the same time, we must not be attached. That is to say, we must not be drawn away from the work by anything else. Still, we must be able to quit the work whenever we like. If we examine our own lives, we find that the greatest cause of sorrow is this. We take up something and put our whole energy on it. Perhaps it is a failure, and yet we cannot give it up. We know that it is hurting us, that any further clinging to it is simply bringing misery on us. Still, we cannot tear ourselves away from it. The bee came to sip the honey, but its feet stuck to the honey pot, and it could not get away. Again and again, we are finding ourselves in that state. That is the whole secret of existence. Why are we here? We came here to sip the honey, and we find our hands and feet sticking to it. We are caught, though we came to catch. We came to enjoy. We are being enjoyed. We came to rule. We are being ruled. We came to work. We are being worked. All the time we find that. And this comes into every detail of our life. We are being worked upon by other minds, and we are always struggling to work on other minds. We want to enjoy the pleasures of life, and they eat into our vitals. We want to get everything from nature, but we find in the long run that nature takes everything from us, depletes us, and casts us aside. Had it not been for this, life would have been all sunshine. Never mind, with all its failures and successes, with all its joys and sorrows, it can be one succession of sunshine if only we are not caught. That is the one cause of misery. We are attached. We are being caught. Therefore, says the Gita, work constantly, work, but be not attached. Be not caught. Reserve unto yourself the power of detaching yourself from everything, however beloved, however much the soul might yearn for it, however great the pangs of misery you feel if you were going to leave it. Still, reserve the power of leaving it whenever you want. The weak have no place here, in this life or in any other life. Weakness leads to slavery. Weakness leads to all kinds of misery, physical and mental. Weakness is death. There are hundreds of thousands of microbes surrounding us, but they cannot harm us unless we become weak, until the body is ready and predisposed to receive them. There may be a million microbes of misery floating about us. Never mind, they dare not approach us. They have no power to get a hold on us until the mind is weakened. This is the great fact. Strength is life. Weakness is death. Strength is felicity, life eternal, immortal. Weakness is constant strain and misery. Weakness is death. Attachment is the source of all our pleasures now. We are attached to our friends, to our relatives. We are attached to our intellectual and spiritual works. We are attached to external objects so that we get pleasure from them. What again brings misery but this very attachment? We have to detach ourselves to earn joy. If only we had power to detach ourselves at will, there would not be any misery. That man alone will be able to get the best of nature, who, having the power of attaching himself to a thing with all his energy, has also the power to detach himself when he should do so. The difficulty is that there must be as much power of attachment as that of detachment. There are men who are never attracted by anything. They can never love. They are hard-hearted and apathetic. They escape most of the miseries of life. But the wall never feels misery. The wall never loves, is never hurt. But it is the wall after all. Surely it is better to be attached and caught than to be a wall. Therefore, the man who never loves, who is hard and stony, escape most of the miseries of life, escapes also its joys. We do not want that. That is weakness. That is death. That soul has not been awakened that never feels weakness, never feels misery. That is a callous state. We do not want that. At the same time, we not only want this mighty power of love, this mighty power of attachment, the power of throwing our whole soul upon a single object, losing ourselves and letting ourselves be annihilated, as it were, for other souls, which is the power of the gods, but we want to be higher even than the gods. The perfect man can put his whole soul upon that one point of love, yet he is unattached. How comes this? There is another secret to learn. The beggar is never happy. The beggar only gets a dole with pity and scorn behind it, at least with a thought behind that the beggar is a low object. He never really enjoys what he gets. We are all beggars. Whatever we do, we want a return. We are all traders. We are traders in life. We are traders in virtue. We are traders in religion. And alas, we are also traders in love. If you come to trade, if it is a question of give and take, if it is a question of buy and sell, abide by the laws of buying and selling. There is a bad time and there is a good time. There is a rise and a fall in prices. Always you expect the blow to come. It is like looking at the mirror. Your face is reflected. You make a grimace, there is one in the mirror. If you laugh, the mirror laughs. This is buying and selling, giving and taking. We get caught. How? Not by what we give, but by what we expect. We get misery in return for our love, not from the fact that we love, but from the fact that we want love in return. There is no misery where there is no want. Desire, want, is the father of all misery. Desires are bound by the laws of success and failure. Desires must bring misery. The great secret of true success, of true happiness, then, is this. The man who asks for no return, the perfectly unselfish man, is the most successful. It seems to be a paradox. Do we not know that every man who is unselfish in life gets cheated, gets hurt? Apparently, yes. Christ was unselfish and yet he was crucified. True, but we know that his unselfishness is the reason, the cause of a great victory, the crowning of millions upon millions of lives with the blessings of true success. Ask nothing, want nothing in return. Give what you have to give. It will come back to you, but do not think of that now. It will come back multiplied 1,000-fold, but the attention must not be on that. Yet, have the power to give. Give, and there it ends. Learn that the whole of life is giving, that nature will force you to give. So give willingly. Sooner or later, you will have to give up. You come into life to accumulate. With clenched hands, you want to take, but nature puts a hand on your throat and makes your hands open. Whether you will it or not, you have to give. The moment you say, I will not, the blow comes. You are hurt. None is there but will be compelled in the long run to give up everything. And the more one struggles against this law, the more miserable one feels. It is because we dare not give, because we are not resigned enough to accede to this grand demand of nature, that we are miserable. The forest is gone, but we get heat in return. The sun is taking up water from the ocean to return it in showers. You are a machine for taking and giving. You take in order to give. Ask therefore nothing in return, but the more you give, the more will come to you. The quicker you can empty the air out of this room, the quicker it will be filled up by the external air. And if you close all the doors and every aperture, that which is within will remain, but that which is outside will never come in, and that which is within will stagnate, degenerate, and become poisoned. A river is continually emptying itself into the ocean and is continually filling up again. Bar not the exit into the ocean. The moment you do that, death seizes you. Be therefore not a beggar. Be unattached. This is the most terrible task of life. You do not calculate the dangers on the path. Even by intellectually recognizing the difficulties, we really do not know them until we feel them. From a distance, we may get a general view of a park. Well, what of that? We feel and really know it when we are in it. Even if our every attempt is a failure, and we bleed and are torn asunder, yet, through all this, we have to preserve our heart. We must assert our Godhead in the midst of all these difficulties. Nature wants us to react, to return blow for blow, cheating for cheating, lie for lie, to hit back with all our might. Then it requires a super divine power not to hit back, to keep control, to be unattached. Every day we renew our determination to be unattached. We cast our eyes back and look at the past objects of our love and attachment, and feel how every one of them made us miserable. We went down into the depths of despondency because of our love. We found ourselves mere slaves in the hands of others. We were dragged down and down. And we make a fresh determination. Henceforth, I will be master of myself. Henceforth, I will have control over myself. But the time comes, and the same story once more. Again the soul is caught and cannot get out. The bird is in a net, struggling and fluttering. This is our life. I know the difficulties. tremendous they are, and 90% of us become discouraged and lose heart, and in our turn often become pessimists and cease to believe in sincerity, love, and all that is grand and noble. So we find men who, in the freshness of their lives, have been forgiving, kind, simple, and guileless, become in old age lying masks of men. Their minds are a mass of intricacy. There may be a good deal of external policy, possibly. They are not hot-headed, they do not speak, but it would be better for them to do so. Their hearts are dead, and therefore they do not speak. They do not curse, not become angry. But it would be better for them to be able to be angry, 1,000 times better to be able to curse. They cannot. There is death in the heart, for cold hands have seized upon it, and it can no more act, even to utter a curse, even to use a harsh word. All this we have to avoid. Therefore I say we require super-divine power. Superhuman power is not strong enough. Super-divine strength is the only way out. By it alone we can pass through all these intricacies, through these showers of miseries unscathed. We may be cut to pieces, torn asunder, yet our hearts must grow nobler and nobler all the time. It is very difficult, but we can overcome the difficulty by constant practice. We must learn that nothing can happen to us unless we make ourselves susceptible to it. I have just said, no disease can come to me until the body is ready. It does not depend alone on the germs, but upon a certain predisposition which is already in the body. We get only that for which we are fitted. Let us give up our pride and understand this, that never is misery undeserved. There never has been a blow undeserved. There never has been an evil for which I did not pave the way with my own hands. We ought to know that. Analyze yourselves, and you will find that every blow you have received came to you because you prepared yourselves for it. You did half, and the external world did the other half. That is how the blow came. That will sober us down. At the same time, from this very analysis will come a note of hope, and the note of hope is, I have no control of the external world, but that which is in me and nearer unto me, my own world, is in my control. If the two together are required to make a failure, if the two together are necessary to give me a blow, I will not contribute the one which is in my keeping. And how then can the blow come? If I get real control of myself, the blow will never come. We are all the time, from our childhood, trying to lay the blame upon something outside ourselves. We are always standing up to set right other people and not ourselves. If we are miserable, we say, "Oh, the world is a devil's world." We curse others and say, "What infatuated fools!" But why should we be in such a world if we really are so good? If this is a devil's world, we must be devils also. Why else should we be here? Oh, the people of the world are so selfish. True enough, but why should we be found in that company if we be better? Just think of that. We only get what we deserve. It is a lie when we say the world is bad and we are good. It can never be so. It is a terrible lie we tell ourselves. This is the first lesson to learn. Be determined not to curse anything outside, not to lay the blame upon anyone outside, but be a man. Stand up, lay the blame on yourself. You will find that is always true. Get hold of yourself. Is it not a shame that at one moment we talk so much of our manhood, of our being gods, that we know everything, we can do everything, we are blameless, spotless, the most unselfish people in the world, and at the next moment a little stone hurts us, A little anger from a little jack wounds us. Any fool in the street makes these gods miserable. Should this be so if we are such gods? Is it true that the world is to blame? Could God, who is the purest and the noblest of souls, be made miserable by any of our tricks? If you are so unselfish, you are like God. What world can hurt you? You would go through the seventh hell, unscathed, untouched. But the very fact that you complain and want to lay the blame upon the external world shows that you feel the external world. The very fact that you feel shows that you are not what you claim to be. You only make your offense greater by heaping misery upon misery, by imagining that the external world is hurting you and crying out, "Oh, this devil's world, this man hurts me, that man hurts me," and so forth. It is adding lies to misery. We are to take care of ourselves. That much we can do, and give up attending to others for a time. Let us perfect the means. The end will take care of itself. For the world can be good and pure only if our lives are good and pure. It is an effect, and we are the means. Therefore, let us purify ourselves. Let us make ourselves perfect. Chapter 2. Unselfish Work. This world is not for cowards. Do not try to fly. Look not for success or failure. Join yourself to the perfectly unselfish will and work on. Know that the mind which is born to succeed joins itself to a determined will and perseveres. You have the right to work, but do not become so degenerate as to look for results. Work incessantly, but see something behind the work. Even good deeds can find a man in great bondage. Therefore, be not bound by good deeds or by desire for name and fame. Those who know this secret pass beyond this round of birth and death and become immortal. Chapter 3. On Karma Yoga. Isolation of the soul from all objects, mental and physical, is the goal. When that is attained, the soul will find that it was alone all the time, and it required no one to make it happy. As long as we require someone else to make us happy, we are slaves. When the Purusha finds that it is free and does not require anything to complete itself, that this nature is quite unnecessary, then freedom, Kaivalya, is attained. Men run after a few dollars and do not think anything of cheating a fellow being to get those dollars. But if they would restrain themselves, in a few years they would develop such characters as would bring them millions of dollars if they wanted them. Then their will would govern the universe. But we are all such fools. What is the use of talking of one's mistakes to the world? They cannot thereby be undone. For what one has done, one must suffer. One must try and do better. The world sympathizes only with the strong and the powerful. It is only work that is done as a free will offering to humanity and to nature that does not bring with it any binding attachment. Duty of any kind is not to be slighted. A man who does the lower work is not for that reason only a lower man than he who does the higher work. A man should not be judged by the nature of his duties, but by the manner in which he does them. His manner of doing them and his power to do them are indeed the test of a man. A shoemaker who can turn out a strong, nice pair of shoes in the shortest possible time is a better man, according to his profession and his work, than a professor who talks nonsense every day of his life. Every duty is holy. and devotion to duty is the highest form of the worship of God. It is certainly a source of great help in enlightening and emancipating the deluded and ignorance-encumbered souls of the baddhas, the bound ones. By doing well the duty which is nearest to us, the duty which is in our hands now, we make ourselves stronger, and improving our strength in this manner, step by step, we may even reach a state in which it shall be our privilege to do the most coveted and honored duties in life and in society. Nature's justice is uniformly stern and unrelenting. The most practical man would call life neither good nor evil. Every successful man must have behind him somewhere tremendous integrity, tremendous sincerity, and that is the cause of his signal success in life. He may not have been perfectly unselfish, yet he was tending towards it. If he had been perfectly unselfish, his would have been as great a success as that of the Buddha or of the Christ. The degree of unselfishness marks the degree of success everywhere. The great leaders of mankind belong to higher fields than the field of platform work. However we may try, there cannot be any action which is perfectly pure or any which is perfectly impure, taking purity or impurity in the sense of injury or non-injury. We cannot breathe or live without injuring others, and every morsel of food we eat is taken from another's mouth. Our very lives are crowding out some other lives. It may be those of men or animals or small fungi, but someone somewhere we have to crowd out. That being the case, it naturally follows that perfection can never be attained by work. We may work through all eternity, but there will be no way out of this intricate maze. We may work through all eternity, but there will be no way out of this intricate maze. We may work on and on and on, but there will be no end. The man who works through freedom and love cares nothing for results, but the slave wants his whipping. The servant wants his pay. So with all life. Take for instance the public life. The public speaker wants a little applause or a little hissing and hooting. If you keep him in a corner without it, you kill him, for he requires it. This is working through slavery. To expect something in return under such conditions becomes second nature. Next comes the work of the servant, who requires some pay. I give this, and you give me that. Nothing is easier to say, I work for work's sake, but nothing is so difficult to attain. I would go 20 miles on my hands and knees to look on the face of the man who can work for work's sake. There is a motive somewhere. If it is not money, it is power. If it is not power, it is gain. Somehow, somewhere, there is a motive power. You are my friend, and I want to work for you and with you. This is all very well, and every moment I may make protestation of my sincerity. But take care, you must be sure to agree with me. If you do not, I shall no longer take care of you or live for you. This kind of work for a motive brings misery. That work alone brings unattachment and bliss, wherein we work as masters of our own minds. The great lesson to learn is that I am not the standard by which the whole universe is to be judged. Each man is to be judged by his own idea, each race by its own standard and ideal, each custom of each country by its own reasoning and conditions. American customs are the result of the environment in which the Americans live, and Indian customs are the result of the environment in which the Indians are. And so of China, Japan, England, and every other country. We all find ourselves in the position for which we are fit. Each ball finds its own hole, and if one has some capacity above another, the world will find that out too, in this universal adjusting that goes on. So it is no use to grumble. There may be a rich man who is wicked, yet there must be in that man certain qualities that made him rich. And if any other man has the same qualities, he will also become rich. What is the use of fighting and complaining? That will not help us to better things. He who grumbles at the little thing that has fallen to his lot to do will grumble at everything. Always grumbling, he will lead a miserable life, and everything will be a failure. But that man who does his duty as he goes, putting his shoulder to the wheel, will see the light, and higher duties will fall to his share. Karma Yoga is purifying the mind by means of work. Now, if any work is done, good or bad, it must produce as a result a good or bad effect. No power can stay it, once the cause is present. Therefore, good action producing good karma, and bad action, bad karma. The soul will go on in eternal bondage without ever hoping for deliverance. Now karma belongs only to the body or the mind, never to the Atman, self. Only it can cast a veil before the Atman. The veil cast by bad karma is ignorance. Good karma has the power to strengthen the moral powers, and thus it creates non-attachment. It destroys the tendency towards bad karma and thereby purifies the mind. But if the work is done with the intention of enjoyment, it then produces only that very enjoyment and does not purify the mind or chitta. Therefore, all work should be done without any desire to enjoy the fruits thereof. All fear and all desire to enjoy here or hereafter must be banished forever by the Karma Yogi. Moreover, this karma without desire of return will destroy the selfishness, which is the root of all bondage. The watchword of the Karma Yogi is, "Not I, but thou," and no amount of self-sacrifice is too much for him. But he does this without any desire to go to heaven or gain name or fame or any other benefit in this world. Although the explanation and rationale of this unselfish work is only in Jnana Yoga, yet the natural divinity of man makes him love all sacrifice simply for the good of others, without any ulterior motive, whatever his creed or religion. Again, with many, the bondage of wealth is very great, and Karma Yoga is absolutely necessary for them as breaking the crystallization that has gathered round their love for money. Chapter 4. Work as Worship. The highest man cannot work, for there is no binding element, no attachment, no ignorance in him. A ship is said to have passed over a mountain of magnet ore, and all the bolts and bars were drawn out, and it went to pieces. It is in ignorance that struggle remains, because we are all really atheists. Real theists cannot work. We are atheists more or less. We do not see God or believe in Him. He is God to us and nothing more. There are moments when we think He is near, but then we fall down again. When you see Him, who struggles for whom? Help the Lord? There is a proverb in our language. Shall we teach the architect of the universe how to build? So those are the highest of mankind who do not work. The next time you see these silly phrases about the world and how we must all help God and do this or that for Him, remember this. Do not think such thoughts. They are too selfish. All the work you do is subjective, is done for your own benefit. God has not fallen into a ditch for you and me to help Him out by building a hospital or something of that sort. He allows you to work. He allows you to exercise your muscles in this great gymnasium, not in order to help him, but that you may help yourself. Do you think even an ant will die for want of your help? Most arrant blasphemy. The world does not need you at all. The world goes on. You are like a drop in the ocean. A leaf does not move, the wind does not blow without him. Blessed are we that we are given the privilege of working for him, not of helping him. You cannot help. It is blaspheming. You are here yourself at his pleasure. Do you mean to say you help him? You worship. When you give a morsel of food to the dog, you worship the dog as God. God is in that dog. He is the dog. He is all and in all. We are allowed to worship him. Stand in that reverent attitude to the whole universe, and then will come perfect non-attachment. This should be your duty. This is the proper attitude of work. This is the secret taught by Karma Yoga. Chapter 5. The Law and Freedom. The struggle never had meaning for the man who is free, but for us it has a meaning because it is name and form that creates the world. We have a place for struggle in the Vedanta, but not for fear. All fears will vanish when you begin to assert your own nature. If you think that you are bound, bound you will remain. If you think you are free, free you will be. That sort of freedom which we can feel when we are yet in the phenomenal is a glimpse of the real, but not yet the real. I disagree with the idea that freedom is obedience to the laws of nature. I do not understand what it means. According to the history of human progress, it is disobedience to nature that has constituted that progress. It may be said that the conquest of lower laws was through the higher, but even there the conquering mind was only trying to be free, and as soon as it found that the struggle was also through law, it wanted to conquer that also. So the ideal was freedom in every case. The trees never disobey law. I never saw a cow steal. An oyster never told a lie. Yet they are not greater than man. This life is a tremendous assertion of freedom, and this obedience to law, carried far enough, would make us simply matter, either in society or in politics or in religion. Too many laws are a sure sign of death. Wherever in any society there are too many laws, it is a sure sign that that society will soon die. If you study the characteristics of India, you will find that no nation possesses so many laws as the Hindus, and national death is the result. But the Hindus had one peculiar idea. They never made any doctrines or dogmas in religion, and the latter has had the greatest growth. Eternal law cannot be freedom, because to say that the eternal is inside law is to limit it. There is no purpose in view with God, because if there were some purpose, he would be nothing better than a man. Why should he need any purpose? If he had any, he would be bound by it. There would be something besides him which was greater. For instance, the carpet weaver makes a piece of carpet. The idea was outside of him, something greater. Now, where is the idea to which God would adjust himself? Just as the greatest emperors sometimes play with dolls, so he is playing with this nature. And what we call law is this. We call it law because we can see only little bits which run smoothly. All our ideas of law are within the little bit. It is nonsense to say that law is infinite, that throughout all time stones will fall. If all reasons be based upon experience, who was there to see if stones fell 5 millions of years ago? So law is not constitutional in man. It is a scientific assertion as to man that where we begin, there we end. As a matter of fact, we get gradually outside of law until we get out altogether, but with the added experience of a whole life. In God and freedom we began, and freedom and God will be the end. These laws are in the middle state through which we have to pass. Our Vedanta is the assertion of freedom always. The very idea of law will frighten the Vedantists. An eternal law is a very dreadful thing for him, because there would be no escape. If there is to be an eternal law binding him all the time, where is the difference between him and a blade of grass? We do not believe in that abstract idea of law. We say that it is freedom that we are to seek, and that freedom is God. It is the same happiness as in everything else, but when man seeks it in something which is finite, he gets only a spark of it. The thief, when he steals, gets the same happiness as the man who finds it in God. But the thief gets only a little spark with a mass of misery. The real happiness is God. Love is God. Freedom is God. And everything that is bondage is not God. Man has freedom already, but he will have to discover it. He has it, but every moment forgets it. That discovering, consciously or unconsciously, is the whole life of everyone. But the difference between the sage and the ignorant man is that one does it consciously and the other unconsciously. Everyone is struggling for freedom, from the atom to the star. The ignorant man is satisfied if he can get freedom within a certain limit, if he can get rid of the bondage of hunger or of being thirsty. But that sage feels that there is a stronger bondage which has to be thrown off. He would not consider the freedom of the Red Indian as freedom at all. According to our philosophers, freedom is the goal. Knowledge cannot be the goal because knowledge is a compound. It is a compound of power and freedom, and it is freedom alone that is desirable. That is what men struggle after. Simply the possession of power would not be knowledge. For instance, a scientist can send an electric shock to a distance of some miles, but nature can send it to an unlimited distance. Why do we not build statues to nature then? It is not law that we want, but ability to break law. We want to be outlaws. If you are bound by laws, you will be a lump of clay. Whether you are beyond law or not is not the question, but the thought that we are beyond law. Upon that is based the whole history of humanity. For instance, a man lives in a forest and never has had any education or knowledge. He sees a stone falling down, a natural phenomenon happening, and he thinks it is freedom. He thinks it has a soul, and the central idea in that is freedom. But as soon as he knows that it must fall, he calls it nature, dead, mechanical action. I may or may not go into the street. In that is my glory as a man. If I am sure that I must go there, I give myself up and become a machine. Nature, with its infinite power, is only a machine. Freedom alone constitutes sentient life. The Vedanta says that the idea of the man in the forest is the right one. His glimpse is right, but the explanation is wrong. He holds to this nature as freedom and not as governed by law. Only after all this human experience we will come back to think the same, but in a more philosophical sense. For instance, I want to go out into the street. I get the impulse of my will, and then I stop. And in the time that intervenes between the will and going into the street, I am working uniformly. Uniformity of action is what we call law. This uniformity of my actions, I find, is broken into very short periods, and so I do not call my actions under law. I work through freedom. I walk for 5 minutes, but before those 5 minutes of walking, which are uniform, there was the action of the will, which gave the impulse to walk. Therefore, man says he is free, because all his actions can be cut up into small periods, and although there is sameness in the small periods, beyond the period, there is not the same sameness. In this perception of non-uniformity is the idea of freedom. In nature, we see only very large periods of uniformity, but the beginning and end must be free impulses. The impulse of freedom was given just at the beginning, and that has rolled on. But this, compared with our periods, is much longer. We find by analysis on philosophic grounds that we are not free. But there will remain this factor, this consciousness that I am free. What we have to explain is how that comes. We will find that we have these two impulsions in us. Our reason tells us that all our actions are caused, and at the same time, with every impulse, we are asserting our freedom. The solution of the Vedanta is that there is freedom inside, that the soul is really free, but that soul's action are percolating through body and mind, which are not free. As soon as we react, we become slaves. A man blames me, and I immediately react in the form of anger. A little vibration which he created made me a slave. So we have to demonstrate our freedom. They alone are the sage, who see in the highest, most learned man, or the lowest animal, or the worst and most wicked of mankind, neither a man, nor a sage, nor an animal, but the same God in all of them. Even in this life they have conquered relativity and have taken a firm stand upon this equality. God is pure, the same to all. Therefore, such a sage would be a living God. This is the goal towards which we are going, and every form of worship, every action of mankind is a method of attaining to it. The man who wants money is striving for freedom, to get rid of the bondage of poverty. Every action of man is worship, because the idea is to attain to freedom, and all actions, directly or indirectly, tends to that. Only those actions that deter are to be avoided. The whole universe is worshipping, consciously or unconsciously. Only it does not know that even while it is cursing, it is in another form worshipping the same God it is cursing. Because those who are cursing are also struggling for freedom. They never think that in reacting from a thing, they are making themselves slaves to it. It is hard to kick against the pricks. If we could get rid of the belief in our limitations, it would be possible for us to do everything just now. It is only a question of time. If that is so, add power, and so diminish time. Remember the case of the professor who learnt the secret of the development of marble and who made marble in 12 years, while it took nature centuries.